Captain Velter pressed his long blue fingers against the smooth control panel of his ship. The Serenity's edge floated, quietly in space, far from any known worlds. His crew of 12 Zephyrians worked, at their stations, checking the stars and planets around them. They had been exploring this part of space for 3 months now, looking for new things to study and learn about. The ship was beautiful and clean, made of white metal that shined in the starlight. Inside, everything was soft and peaceful. Lights were gentle. The air smelled like flowers, and quiet music played from hidden speakers. The Zephyrians liked things calm and nice. They had lived in peace for over 2,000 years. Beltar was tall and thin like all his people. His skin was light blue, and his eyes were large and kind. Wore a simple white uniform with no weapons. The Zephyrians did not believe in fighting. They solved problems by talking and sharing ideas. Captain called Dr. Kithna from her station. She was a ship science officer, smaller than just as smart. I am getting strange readings from the system ahead of us. Walked over to look at her screen. Numbers and colors danced across it in patterns he had never seen before. What kind of readings? Energy. Patterns that do not match anything in our database. Kithna said. Her voice sounded worried. The signals are very strong and very chaotic. I've never seen anything like this before. The other crew members stopped their work to listen. They trusted Dr. Kithna. She had studied space and planets for over 50 years. If she was confused, then something very unusual was happening. Show me the system, Beltar said. The main screen at the front of the bridge lit up, showed a yellow star with several planets around it. The third planet from the star glowed blue and green with white clouds swirling around it. Beautiful, but the readings coming from it made no sense. The planet appears to be a Class 12 death world, Kithna said quietly. Everyone on the bridge became very still. A Class 12 death world was the most dangerous type of planet in the galaxy. The gravity would be too strong, the weather too violent, and the life too deadly for any thinking beings to survive. Most Class 12 worlds had no life at all. It cannot be right, said Navigator Zephyr from a station. Look at those energy readings. Someone is using advanced technology down there. Beltar stared at the screen. Planet was sending out radio waves, light signals, and other forms of communication. Lots of them. Thousands of different signals and dozens of different patterns. Run a life scan, he ordered. Dr. Kithno worked at her controls for several minutes. When she looked up, her face was pale. Captain, I am reading over 7 billion. Intelligent life furs on that planet. 7 billion. Velter could not believe it. On a death world, the computer confirms it. Whatever lives down there, they are not only alive, but thriving. They have built cities, roads, and what looks like space technology. Beltar walked to the front of the bridge and stared at the impossible planet. In all his years of exploring space, he had never heard of intelligent life surviving on such a dangerous world. It went against everything the Galactic Federation knew about how life worked. Captain Communications Officer Raina called out, I am picking up their signals now. They're using hundreds of different languages. Hundreds. Beltar was amazed. Most planets had 1 or 2 languages at most. How many different groups are down there? The computer is trying to count them, but it keeps changing. I think there are over 200 separate nations or tribes. They do not seem to be united under one government. This was getting stranger by the minute. Every intelligent species of Federation had met was peaceful and united. They worked together to build better lives for everyone. But these creatures seem to be divided into many different groups. Are they fighting each other? Beltar asked. Rhonda listened to more. Signals. Some of the transmissions appear to be military in nature. I am detecting weapon signatures and defensive systems. But I also see peaceful communications about trade, science, and culture. Beltar made a decision. We will follow first contact. Protocols. Send them a standard greeting message in the most common galactic languages. Let them know we come in. Peace and wish to learn about them. The crew worked for an hour to prepare the message. It was simple and friendly, explaining that they were explorers from the Galactic Federation who wanted to meet new friends. They sent it toward the planet and waited. The response came faster than expected. Not one message, but dozens of them. They came from different parts of the planet, in languages the ship's computer could not understand. Some sounded friendly, others seemed worried or scared, and few sounded angry. Captain Rashonda said one of the messages is clearer than the others. The computer is starting to translate it. The main screen flickered, and words appeared. The translation was rough, but they could understand it. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. You are in our solar system without permission. State your business. Here or leave immediately. We are watching you. Earth Defense Command. So the planet was called Earth, and these beings had some kind of military force watching space around their world. Send another message, Velter ordered. Tell them we are peaceful explorers. We mean no harm and would like to meet them. This time the response came even faster. Peaceful or not, you stay where you are. We are sending a ship to meet you. Do not move closer to Earth. Do not scan our planet. We will come to you. Dr. Kitnall looked worried. Captain, they sound very suspicious. Most new species are happy to meet us. They live on a death world, Velter reminded her. Perhaps they have learned to be careful about strangers. An hour later, their sensors detected a new ship leaving the planet's atmosphere. It was much smaller than the Serenity's Edge and looked very different. Where their ship was smooth and graceful, this one was blocky and covered with odd bumps and points. Dark metal instead of shining white. It is armed, Zeph reported. Multiple weapon systems, though they appear to be primitive compared to Federation technology. How primitive? Ealer asked. Chemical explosives and simple energy weapons. But there are a lot of them. The strange ship approached slowly. When it was close enough, a new voice came over their communication system. It sounded different from the other. Messages, deeper, rougher, and very direct. Alien ship. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Liberty. We are coming alongside your vessel. Prepare to be boarded for inspection? Belvedere was confused. Boarded for inspection. We are not criminals. You are unknown contacts in our space. The voice replied. Till we know who you are and what you want, you follow our rules. Lower your shields and open your airlocks. Dr. Kithna whispered. Captain, their approach is very different from Federation protocols. They seem to assume we might be dangerous. Beltar thought about this. Nice. Every species of Federation had ever met was peaceful like them. These Earth beings seem to think differently about meeting strangers. They acted like meeting new people was dangerous. Very. Well, Captain Morrison, Velter said into the communicator. We will lower our shields, but please understand we truly come in peace. We will decide that for ourselves, Morrison replied. As the USS Liberty moved closer, Ealer wondered what kind of beings could survive on a death world and still reach the stars. Soon he would find out. The airlocks connected with a loud clang that echoed to the peaceful halls of the Serenity's Edge. Everything was about to change. The airlock door opened with a hiss of air. Captain and his crew waited nervously in the docking bay of their ship. They had never met beings from a death world before. They did not know what to expect. Heavy footsteps echoed through the metal corridor. The sounds were different from the soft padding of Zephyrian feet. These steps were hard and deliberate, like a predator walking. Through a forest, 3 figures appeared in the doorway. They wore thick, dark suits that covered their entire bodies. Their faces were hidden behind clear helmets that reflected the gentle lights of the Zephyrian ship. The suits looked heavy and bulky, but the beings inside moved with surprising grace. The leader stepped forward. He was tall, much taller than any Zephyrian. Even through the bulky suit, they could see he was built differently. broader, shoulders, thicker arms, and a way of standing that suggested he was ready to fight at any moment. I am Captain Jake Morrison, United Earth Space Command, the figure said. His voice came through a speaker in his helmet. It was deep and rough, nothing like the musical tones of Zephyrian speech. These are Lieutenant Lisa Chong, our linguistic specialist, and Sergeant Tony Rodriguez, security advisor. The woman, called Lisa Chong, was smaller than Morrison, but moved with the same careful alertness. She carried a device that was clearly some kind of computer. The third human, Rodriguez, was watching everything around him like he expected danger to jump out at any moment. "Welcome to our ship," Velter said, trying to sound friendly. "I am Captain Velter of the Galactic Federation vessel Serenity's Edge. We are honored to meet you." Morrison did not respond right away. He was looking around the docking bay, studying every detail. His helmet turned toward the other Zephrins, examining each one carefully. "Your ship is very different from ours," he said finally. "No weapons visible, no defensive positions, no security checkpoints. Either you are very confident or very foolish." Dar, Kithna stepped forward. "We are scientists and explorers, Captain Morrison. We have no need for weapons. The galaxy is full of peaceful beings who wish to learn from each other." Rodriguez made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful beings, right? How many wars has your Federation fought?" "Wars." Velter was confused. "We do not fight wars. We solve disagreements through discussion and compromise. No wars." Morrison repeated slowly. "How do you defend yourselves against hostile forces we have never encountered?" "Hostile forces," Kithna explained. "All the species we have met are reasonable and civilized." The three humans looked at each other. Even through their helmets, the Zephyrians could sense some kind of silent communication passing between them. Captain Lisa Chong said, "Our translator is picking up your language patterns. May I ask about your planet? What is your world like?" "Our home world is called Zeph Prime," Velter said proudly. "It is a beautiful place with gentle weather, peaceful creatures, and abundant resources. We have lived there in harmony for over 2,000 years. Harmony," Rodriguez muttered. "No conflict at all." "Conflict serves no purpose," Kithna said. "When problems arise, we discuss them until everyone agrees on the best solution." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "Lieutenant Chong, are you getting readings on their physiology?" Chong looked at her device. "Basic scans show they are much lighter than us. Bone density about 30% of human normal. Muscle mass is minimal. They appear to be adapted for a low gravity, low stress environment." "Low stress," Morrison repeated. "That explains a lot." "Explains what?" Felter asked. "Why you approach unknown contacts without weapons or defenses." Morrison said, "Your species never learned to be afraid. Fear is counterproductive." Kithna said, "It prevents clear thinking and peaceful solutions." Rodriguez laughed again. "It was not a pleasant sound. Fear keeps you alive. On Earth, if you're not afraid of the right things, you die. Your planet is that dangerous?" Beltar asked. "Our planet is trying to kill us every day," Morrison said matter-of-factly. "Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, ice, ages, disease, predators, and about 1 million other things. That is just the natural disasters. Then there are other humans." "Other humans?" "We fight each other," Chong explained. "We always have for resources, territory, ideas, or sometimes just because we can. Human history is basically one long story of warfare interrupted by brief periods of peace." The Zephyrians were shocked. They had never heard of an intelligent species that fought among themselves. "How do you accomplish anything if you were always fighting?" Kithna asked. "Fighting makes us stronger," Rodriguez said. "Every weapon we build, every tactic we develop, every strategy we create gets tested against other humans first. By the time we face external threats, we are ready for anything." Morrison walked over to one of the Zephyrian control panels. May I? Velter nodded. Morrison examined the smooth, curved surface with its gentle lights and soft controls. It's designed for comfort, Morrison observed. It's easy to use, pleasant to look at, no sharp edges or hard surfaces. You built this for beings who never expected to be hurt. Why would we expect to be hurt? Beltar asked. Because hurt is the natural state of existence, Morrison said. You avoid it, adapt to it, or you die. Chong was working with her translator device. Captain, I have been analyzing your language patterns. The species has no words for many concepts that are common to humans. What? Concepts? Murder, warfare, ambush, betrayal, torture, genocide, terrorism, invasion, conquest, and about 50 other terms related to violence and conflict. We have no need for such words, Kitna said. We do not do those things. What happens when someone disagrees with your government? Rodriguez asked. We discuss the disagreement until we reach a solution that works for everyone. What if they refuse to discuss it? Why would they refuse? Because they want something you are not willing to give them. Beltar thought about this. We would find a compromise. What if there is no compromise? What if they want something that you cannot give up? There is always a compromise. Morrison shook his head. No, there is not. Sometimes two sides want things that cannot both exist. Sometimes one side has to lose. Then we would ask the Galactic Federation Council to mediate. Kitna said, what if the other side refuses to accept the Council's decision? The Zephrins were quiet. They had never encountered such a situation. You enforce a decision, Chung said, with ships, weapons, and soldiers if necessary. The Federation does not have ships or weapons or soldiers, Velter said. Oh, then how do you enforce anything? Everyone agrees to follow the rules because the rules are fair and reasonable. Morrison removed his helmet. The Zephyrians gasped. His face was hard and scarred with lines around his eyes that spoke of constant stress and danger. His hair was gray despite his apparent youth, and his eyes were the color of steel. Captain, he said, I think you need to understand something about humans. You do not follow rules because they are fair and reasonable. We follow rules because someone stronger than us makes us follow them, or because we choose to follow them. For our own benefit, remove the enforcement and some humans will break every rule they can. That is a terrible way to live, Kitna whispered. It is the only way we know how to live, Morrison replied. And it made us the most dangerous species on our planet. We killed everything that tried to kill us. And then we started exploring space to find new challenges. New challenges. Velter was confused. Earth is not enough anymore. Rodriguez said, we mastered our home world. Now we want to see what else is out there. Chong looked at her readings again. Captain Morrison, their ship's computer contains information about something called the Galactic Federation. Thousands of species, all peaceful, all cooperative. Thousands of species just like them? Morrison asked. It appears so. Morrison looked at the Zephyrians with an expression they could not read. Captain Velter, I think we need to have a much longer conversation. A peaceful galaxy just got a lot more complicated. What do you mean? You're about to learn what happens when Deathworld predators meet a universe full of prey. 3 days had passed since the humans first stepped aboard the Serenity's Edge. Captain Morrison and his team had moved freely through the ship, studying everything they saw. The Zephyrians watched nervously as the humans examined their technology, weapon systems, and defensive capabilities. Morrison spent most of his time on the bridge asking questions about Federation ships, colonies, and military forces. When he learned that the Federation had no military forces, he became very quiet and thoughtful. Lieutenant Chong worked with Dr. Kithna to learn more about galactic civilization. She was amazed by how many species live together peacefully, but she also seemed worried by how defenseless they all were. Sergeant Rodriguez walked through the ship like he was planning a battle. He studied the corridors, emergency systems, and crew quarters. He made notes on a small device and shook his head often. Your ship has no internal defenses, he told Captain Velter during dinner. No security doors, no weapons lockers, no protected areas. If someone hostile got aboard, your crew would be helpless. Why would someone hostile come aboard? Velter asked. We invite all visitors peacefully, 'cause hostile people do not care about your invitations, Rodriguez replied. They take what they want and destroy what they cannot use. Morrison was studying a star chart when the ship's alarm suddenly began ringing. The gentle musical tones that usually announced minor problems were replaced by harsh, urgent sounds that the Zephyrians had never heard before. Navigator Zephyr looked up from his station with panic in his large eyes. Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures approaching the system. Multiple vessels, very large, moving at incredible speed. Velter hurried to the sensor display. The readings made his blood turn cold. 12 enormous ships were racing toward them from deep space. Each one was larger than the biggest Federation vessel ever built. Harvester fleet, Dar Kithna whispered. Her voice was full of terror. Morrison moved quickly to the sensor station. What are harvesters? The most dangerous force in the galaxy, Beltar said. His hands were shaking as he activated the ship's emergency protocols. They are ancient machines that consume entire worlds. No one knows where they came from or what they want. They simply arrive, strip a planet of all life and resources, and move on. Chang looked up from her translator device. Often do they attack. Every few hundred years, they appear somewhere in the galaxy. Entire civilizations disappear overnight. The Federation keeps records of 17 species that were completely destroyed by harvester fleets. What do you do when they show up? Morrison asked. Run. Beltar said simply. Run as fast and as far as possible. Send warning messages to nearby systems and hope they escape in time. Rodriguez was studying the sensor readings. 12 ships. How many people do they usually have? They are not people, Kithna explained. They are machines. Ancient artificial intelligence that has been traveling through space for thousands of years. Each ship contains millions of smaller machines that can take apart anything they touch. Morrison nodded slowly. How do they fight? No one knows, Velter said. No ship has ever survived a direct encounter with a harvester fleet. They have weapons that can destroy moons, shields that cannot be penetrated, and technology far beyond anything the Federation understands. So your strategy is to run away? Morrison looked at Chang and Rodriguez. Something passed between them that the Zeparians could not understand. It was not fear. It looked almost like excitement. Captain Morrison said, We need to return to Earth immediately. Yes, of course. Must all evacuate this system before the harvesters arrive. I will set course for the nearest Federation outpost. No, Morrison said firmly. Can wherever you want. But we are going back to Earth to warn our people. To warn them so they can evacuate. Morrison smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. To warn them so they can prepare to fight. The Zephyrians stared at him in shock. Captain Morrison, you do not understand. No one fights the harvesters. It is impossible. Impossible for you maybe, but you have never seen humans at war. Dr. Kithna grabbed Morrison's arm. You will all die. Your entire species will be destroyed. Please, be reasonable. Doctor, reasonable people do not live on Deathworlds, Morrison replied. Reasonable people do not survive when everything around them is trying to kill them. We did not become the dominant species on Earth by being reasonable. The USS Liberty undocked from Serenity's edge and began flying back toward Earth. Captain wanted to follow them, but Federation protocol required him to report the harvester fleet immediately and evacuate to a safe distance. As the human ship disappeared, Velter wondered if he would ever see them again. Probably not. In 18 hours, the harvesters would arrive, and another species would vanish from the galaxy forever. But something strange began happening. Instead of evacuation ships leaving Earth, More vessels started launching from the planet. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The ships were smaller than Federation standards, but they moved with purpose and speed. Captain Communications Officer Ratchenda called out, "I am receiving transmissions from Earth. They are not evacuation. Orders." "What are they?" "Military communications, battle plans, weapon, assignments, and coordination protocols. They are organizing their fleet for combat." Miltar could not believe what he was hearing. They are really going to fight at Piers. "So, Captain, there is something else. They are requesting tactical information about the harvesters." "What kind of tactical information?" "Everything we have. Ship configurations, weapon systems, shield, frequencies, attack patterns, anything that might help them plan their defense." Dr. Kithna was monitoring the human fleet as it formed up around Earth. "Their ships are very different from ours. Heavy armor, multiple weapon systems, and what looks like redundant life support systems. Redundant life support built to keep functioning even after severe damage. These vessels are designed to survive catastrophic battles." More human ships kept launching. Converted cargo vessels with weapons bolted to their hulls. Military ships that looked like they were built specifically for fighting. Even civilian ships that had been quickly armed with whatever weapons could be attached. "How many ships do they have?" Felter asked. Zephril counted the energy signatures. "Over 300. Vessels now and more are still launching. We 100 ships against 12 harvesters." Kithna said quietly, "It is not nearly enough." The largest human ship moved to the front of the fleet. It was called the U.S. Defiance. It was broadcasting commands to all the other vessels. The voice belonged to someone called Commander Alex Parker. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Remember your training and stick to your assignments. We know the odds, and we know what happens if we lose. But we also know something the machines do not." "What is that?" Another human voice over the radio. "They've never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of when our backs are against the wall. Show them why Earth is called a death world." The human fleet spread out in a formation that made no sense to Zephyrian military theory. Instead of staying together for mutual protection, they scattered into small groups. Each group seemed to have its own plan and its own target. "They are not following standard defensive doctrine," Zephril observed. "Maybe they do not know standard defensive doctrine," suggested. "Or maybe they are writing their own." Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channel. The humans had left an open line to the Serenity's edge. "Sergeant Rodriguez, your fleet is badly outnumbered." Beltar said, "Please, reconsider this course of action. Captain, you told us that no one has ever survived a fight with these harvesters. That means no one knows if they can actually be beaten. Today, we find out the harvester fleet was now only 6 hours away. Their massive ships moved through space like dark predators, silent and unstoppable. They had destroyed 17 civilizations without ever taking significant damage. But they had never encountered a species that considered impossible odds to be a personal challenge. They had never fought beings who evolved by conquering the most dangerous planet in their region of space. The humans were about to introduce the galaxy to a new concept, death world warfare. All human vessels. This is Commander Parker. Harvesters will be in weapons range in 4 hours. Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every peaceful species in this galaxy who cannot fight for themselves. Captain, Beltar realized that everything was about to change. Win or lose, the humans were about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. The Harvester fleet arrived exactly when predicted. 12 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, like dark mountains moving through the void. Each vessel was over 10 kilometers long, covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Captain Velter watched from a safe distance as the ancient machines began their approach toward Earth. The Serenity's edge hung in space far from the battle zone, recording everything for the Federation archives. If the humans were destroyed, at least their final moments would be remembered. Harvester ships are activating their weapon systems, Dr. Kittner reported. Energy readings are beyond our measurement capabilities. The lead harvester ship fired a single beam of purple energy at a nearby asteroid. The rock, which had been the size of a small moon, simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris. It was there one moment and gone the next. How do you fight something like that? Navigator Zephyr whispered. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet began moving. 300 ships spread across the solar system started, accelerating toward the harvesters. They did not move in formation. They did not follow any tactical plan that made sense to Federation military theory. Commander, Alex Parker's voice crackled over the communications channel. All ships remember the plan. We are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to survive long enough to hurt them. The U.S. Defiance led the charge, accelerating directly at the largest harvester vessel. Behind it came dozens of other ships, each one taking a different path toward the enemy fleet. They are scattering in all directions. Kithna observed. The harvesters will not know which ship to target first. It will not matter, Beltar said sadly. Those energy weapons can destroy entire fleets. The first harvester ship turned, its main weapon toward the approaching humans. The purple beam lanced out, aimed at the U.S. Defiance, but the human ship was no longer where the beam was pointed. It had changed course at the last second, diving under the energy. Blast. Impossible, Zephyr gasped. No ship can change direction that quickly. But the human ships were doing exactly that. They twisted and turned through space like living creatures, avoiding the massive energy beams by fractions of seconds. When one ship could not dodge fast enough, two others would cross in front of it, using their own hulls as shields. Lieutenant Sam Carter piloted a small fighter ship through the battle like a dancer. Her vessel was tiny compared to the harvester weapons, but that made her almost impossible to hit. She flew between asteroids, used gravity fields to change direction, and treated the deadly space battle like a three-dimensional game. How are they moving like that? Dr. Kithna asked. Their ships are built differently than ours, Beltar realized. Look at the engine configurations. They have maneuvering thrusters everywhere. These vessels were designed for close combat. The human fleet reached the harvester ships and did something that no civilization had ever attempted. They flew right up to the massive vessels and began landing on their hulls. They are boarding the enemy ships, Rakanda said in amazement. Sergeant Maya Brooks led a team of 20 humans onto hull of a harvester cruiser. They wore heavy spacesuits and carried weapons that looked primitive compared to Federation technology. But they moved with the confidence of predators who had hunted bigger prey. The harvester ship tried to shake them off by spinning and accelerating, but the humans held on with magnetic clamps and cutting tools. They began slicing through the oak hull armor with devices that threw white-hot fire. Inside the harvester ship, alarms that had not sounded for 1,000 years began ringing. The ancient AI that controlled the vessel had never encountered biological beings that could survive in space and cut through starship armor with handheld tools. Brooks and her team moved through the corridors of the alien ship like a virus spreading through a body. They did not try to understand the strange technology around them. They simply destroyed everything they could reach with explosives, cutting torches, and even simple hammers. The humans are causing massive damage to the harvester internal systems, Kithner reported. But how are they surviving inside those ships? Human life support technology is very robust, came Morrison's voice over the radio. He was aboard one of the attacking ships, coordinating the boarding actions. We build everything to work, even when it is broken. The tide of battle began to shift in ways that defied all logic. The harvester ships were more advanced, better armed, and protected by shields that should have been impossible to penetrate. But the humans were not fighting like any enemy the machines had encountered before. When conventional weapons Failed, the humans rammed their ships into harvester hulls. When their ships were disabled, the crews continued fighting with whatever they could find. When cornered, they activated self-destruct devices that turned their vessels into massive bombs. Morrison coordinated the chaos from the bridge of his ship while fighting off 3 harvester vessels at once. His hull was breached in 17 places. Half his crew was dead or wounded, and his weapons were running out of ammunition. "Parker, this is Morrison," he called over the radio. "I am losing main power and life support. Estimate 15 minutes before total system failure." "Copy that, Morrison. Can you reach the harvester flagship?" Morrison looked at his tactical display. The largest enemy ship was 2 kilometers away and protected by 6 smaller vessels. Getting there would require flying through a storm of energy, weapons that could vaporize his ship in seconds. Affirmative. Beginning attack. Run now. Morrison's ship, the USS Liberty, turned toward the harvester flagship like a wounded animal, making one final charge. Energy beams struck the hull, tearing away armor and exposing the interior to space, but the ship kept flying. Prepare for ramming speed. Morrison announced to his crew, "It has been an honor serving with you." The Liberty slammed into the side of the harvester flagship at full velocity. The impact tore both ships apart, but not before Morrison's crew detonated every explosive device on their vessel. The blast crippled the enemy flagship and left it drifting helplessly through space across the battlefield. Similar scenes played out as human ships sacrificed themselves to damage the seemingly invincible harvesters. Sam Carter flew her fighter directly into the engine core of a harvester cruiser. Maya Brooks and her boarding team triggered a chain reaction that destroyed an entire enemy vessel from the inside. The harvester AI tried to adapt to human tactics, but the humans kept changing their strategy. Every time the machines learned to counter one approach, the humans tried something completely different. "They fight like they have nothing to lose," Dr. Kitna observed. "They fight like they have everything to gain." Beltar corrected her. "Commander, Parker's ship, the USS Defiance, was the last major human vessel still fighting. Surrounded by 4 harvester ships, it should have been destroyed in seconds. Instead, Parker did something that no sane captain would attempt. He flew directly at the nearest harvester and activated his ship's emergency teleporter. The device was meant to evacuate crew members in emergencies, but Parker used it to transport armed soldiers directly onto the enemy bridge. The human boarding party appeared in the control center of the harvester ship and immediately began destroying everything they could reach. The ancient machines had never designed their ships to resist internal attack by biological entities. Within minutes, the harvester vessel lost all power and began drifting. The other enemy ships turned their weapons on their own vessel to eliminate the human infection, but the damage was already done. For the first time in galactic history, a harvester fleet was retreating. 3 of their ships were destroyed, 5 more were heavily damaged, and their adaptive AI was corrupted by human unpredictability. The surviving human ships hung in space around Earth, battered and broken, but victorious. Of the 300 vessels that had entered the battle, fewer than 50 were still functional. The cost had been enormous, but they had achieved something that 17 civilizations had failed to do. They had fought the harvesters and won. The silence after. The battle was strange and heavy. Captain stared at his screens, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. The harvester fleet was gone, not destroyed completely, but retreating into deep space faster than they had ever moved before. Captain Dr. Kitna said quietly, "I am reading massive damage to the remaining harvester ships. Their formation is broken. Their energy signatures are erratic, and they are broadcasting what appears to be warning signals to other harvester fleets throughout the galaxy, are telling them about the humans around Earth. The surviving human ships floated in space like wounded animals. Many were held together by emergency patches and hope. Some had lost life support and were running on backup power. Others were missing entire sections of their hulls. But the humans were celebrating. Communications Officer Rashinda listened to the radio chatter from the human fleet with amazement. They are singing captain after losing so many ships and people. They are singing victory songs. Commander Alex Parker's voice came over the main channel. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Mission accomplished. We have bloodied the nose of the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Command recommends a drink for anyone still breathing. Laughter echoed across the communication channels. Tired, painful laughter from people who had stared death in the face and somehow lived to tell about it. They treat near extinction as a victory, said in wonder. Because for humans, survival is victory, came a familiar voice. Captain Morrison was somehow still alive, speaking from an escape pod after his ship had been destroyed. We did not expect to win, Captain. We expected to make the enemy. Remember us. The Serenity's Edge moved closer to Earth to assist with rescue. Operations, Federation emergency protocols required them to help any species in distress, even ones that confused them completely. As they approached the human homeworld, more ships began launching from the surface. But these were not warships. They were rescue vessels, medical ships, and repair craft. The humans were already working to save their wounded and rebuild their fleet. Dr. Kithna studied the human rescue operations with fascination. They worked together so efficiently. No arguments about resources or priorities. Every ship knows exactly what to do. War teaches cooperation. Morrison explained from his rescue pod. When survival depends on teamwork, people learn to work together. Quickly, over the next several hours, the Serenity's Edge helped coordinate rescue efforts. The Zephyrians were amazed by human medical technology. They treated injuries that would kill most species and kept fighting even when badly wounded. Lieutenant Lisa Chong survived the battle aboard a damaged cruiser. When the Zephyrians found her, she was still working at her station, despite a broken arm and multiple cuts from flying. Debris. The translator systems worked perfectly, she told Dr. Kithna. We intercepted harvester communications during the battle. They kept asking their AI to explain human behavior, but it could not find patterns in our actions because there were no patterns because we changed our patterns faster than they could adapt. Every time they learned to counter one tactic, we tried something else. Within days, Federation emergency channels were buzzing with news of the impossible battle. Word spread quickly through the peaceful galaxy that someone had actually fought the harvesters and forced them to retreat. The Galactic Federation Council called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss this unprecedented event. Captain Velter was ordered to attend and provide testimony about what he had witnessed. The council chambers were vast and beautiful, designed to inspire peace and cooperation. Delegates from across the galaxy sat in comfortable seats arranged in perfect circles. Zephyrians had always felt at home here among fellow peaceful beings, but today felt different. Today they were talking about war. Chancellor Myash of the Centauri delegation called the session to order. Captain Velter, please, describe the events you witnessed in the Sol system. Stood and activated the holographic display. Images of the battle played out in the center of the chamber. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as human ships threw themselves at the harvester fleet with suicidal courage. These humans, Beltar said, represent something we have never encountered before. They are a species that evolved through constant conflict on a world that tried to kill them every day. They do not seek peace as we understand it. They seek challenges to overcome. Delegate Zorvok from the aquatic systems raised a tentacle. Are they hostile to other species? No, replied. They seem willing to cooperate with peaceful beings, but they approach every situation as if it might become dangerous. They plan for threats we cannot imagine. The hologram showed Morrison's ship ramming the Harvester flagship. Several delegates made sounds of distress. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. Observe Counselor Tenra from the Silicon Collective. This suggests either noble heroism or dangerous instability. Both Dr. Kithna said from the audience. They are heroic because they are unstable. Their entire species is adapted for crisis situations. Chancellor Mirash studied the battle recordings carefully. The implications are profound. If humans can fight harvesters successfully, they could defend our peaceful civilizations from threats we cannot handle ourselves. At what cost? Asked Delegate Yelpop from the Garden Worlds. Their methods are violent and destructive. They solve problems by breaking things. They solve problems by refusing to accept defeat. Velter corrected. When faced with impossible odds, they do not retreat or negotiate. They attack. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates wanted to welcome humans into the Federation immediately. Others worried about introducing such a violent species into their peaceful society. A few suggested keeping humans at a safe distance and only calling them on harvesters appeared. Finally, Chancellor Mesh called for a vote. The proposal is to offer humans associate membership in the Galactic Federation, a special status as a defensive force against existential threats. All in favor, and the vote was unanimous. For the first time in Federation history, A. Species would join not as peaceful explorers, but as professional warriors. The formal invitation was transmitted to Earth within hours. The human response came from someone called President Sarah Martinez, speaking for something called the United Earth Government. We accept your invitation, Martinez said, but with conditions. Human military forces will remain under human command. We will respond to threats as we see fit, using methods we choose. We will cooperate with Federation species, but we will not be commanded by them. The Federation Council agreed to these unprecedented terms. They had no choice. The harvester threat was real. Humans were the only species that had proven capable of fighting back. Within months, human ships began appearing throughout Federation space. They established bases on asteroid fields and dead planets that other species considered uninhabitable. They recruited volunteers from peaceful worlds who wanted to learn human fighting techniques. Captain Morrison was promoted to Admiral, given command of the first Joint Human Federation Defense Fleet. His flagship was a new vessel called the U.S. Determination, built with both human weapons and Federation technology. Lieutenant Chong established the Interspecies Communication Course, teaching humans to speak with aliens and teaching aliens to understand human thinking. Her first students were volunteers from a dozen species who wanted to serve alongside human warriors. Sergeant Rodriguez opened training miles on 3 different worlds, teaching Federation security forces how to think like predators instead of prey. His classes were always full despite the high injury rate among students. The galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. Peaceful species started building stronger ships and developing better defenses. Some even began forming their own military units. Inspired by human examples, trade routes became safer as human patrol ships eliminated pirates and raiders. Remote colonies felt secure knowing that human rapid response teams could reach them. Within days, the Federation's borders expanded. For the first time in centuries, as humans scouted dangerous regions that others had avoided. But the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that sometimes peace must be defended with violence, that cooperation sometimes requires the threat of force, and that the most dangerous predators can become the most loyal protectors. The age of pure pacifism was ending. The age of armed peace had begun. And somewhere in deep space, harvester fleets were learning to fear. Simple message that appeared on their sensors whenever humans were nearby. Earth remembers.